The northwestern peak province of Hyrule is in stark contrast to the green fields and cool forests that lie in its shadow. Raised above the rest of the kingdom, save for the colossal Death Mountain, the Snowpeak region is a frozen tundra, its biting winds and bitter cold making it almost inaccessible to most travellers. Because of this, the Snowpeak region is almost uninhabited, save for those adapted to the land like the hulking Yeti, cloaked in thick fur and warm coats. It's in the far reaches of this icy waste that one of the series' most iconic dungeons lies. The eerie, decaying Snowpeak Ruins. Bizarrely found in one of the most perilous regions in Hyrule, the Snowpeak Ruins are the remains of an opulent mansion. Built from stone bricks, decorated with red carpets, chandeliers and paintings. Yet, despite the sheer cost and effort it must have taken to build this place atop the frozen Snowpeak Mountain, it sits abandoned, save for a pair of Yetis which have taken up residence in its icy halls. Link is invited to the mansion by these Yetis, imaginatively named Yeto and Yeta, after he learns that Yeto has found a shard of the Mirror of Twilight, now kept in the bedroom of their house. But since Yeto found the mirror, Yeta has fallen ill, and monsters have infested the mansion, causing the couple to lock the bedroom in which the mirror shard is found out of fear. Once Link finds the bedroom key, Yeta will show him the shard, but its evil powers take hold of her, transforming her into the gargantuan Blizzetta, imprisoning the Yeti within a sarcophagus of ice. After its defeat, Link is finally free to take the shard, with Yeto coming to Yeta's aid in a heartwarming ending. But while the story of the Yetis and the mirror shard makes sense, this couple took up residence in the mansion, found a shard of the Mirror of Twilight, and suffered due to its corrupting influence, the overall story of Snowpeak Ruins does not. The game doesn't answer who built this house, when, or why. It's clearly designed for humans and not Yeti, as shown by the furniture, but bizarrely the ruins are filled with suits of armour far too large to fit a Hylian. At least 10 feet tall and half that wide, with gaps at the rear to accommodate a tail. Not only this, but the paintings found within the mansion include locations and characters which would be unknown to all but the most informed of individuals, like the Sacred Grove, Rauru the Sage of Light, and even the City in the Sky. So, who built the Snowpeak Mansion, and why does it lie abandoned?
Snowpeak Mansion is found on a small rocky outcrop, only accessible by a single bridge. Its walls are thick and high, made from solid stone, surrounding an inner courtyard, and at the rear a huge tower looms over the rest of the house. It's clearly designed with defense at least partially in mind, as the single bridge would bottleneck any invaders, and what appears to be watchtowers sit atop the walls, which, in addition to the main tower, gives the inhabitants a complete and clear view of their surroundings. The mansion also features a full-on armory. Shields, armor, swords, axes, spears, even cannons, which don't appear anywhere else in Hyrule save for the sky cannons. The amount of weapons and armor found within the mansion immediately rules out the idea that this place was simply someone's home, unless they happen to have their own private army. But, saying that, the mansion is decidedly comfortable in places. The hall, for example, has fine red carpet on the floor and stairs, ornate carved wooden beams and walls, chandeliers, and of course the mysterious paintings. And moving one room further into the mansion, we're met with a living room. A fireplace, cushioned chairs, a clock on the wall, candlesticks, bookshelves, even a bottle of alcohol, and what's probably a dinner bell. Meaning whoever this room was designed for most likely had servants to wait on them when called. The bedroom, too, is ornate. A 4-poster bed, a grandfather clock, a dressing table. The mansion can't have been simply military in use either. It's some sort of blend of the two. Perhaps a castle of sorts for a powerful family, lived in not only by the rich nobles, but servants and soldiers too.
There are two clear purposes for the mansion, the first being a home for whichever wealthy individuals lived here, providing a comfortable respite from the cold. The second is the site's military function, having enough weaponry to arm a small battalion and the space to house these soldiers. But who were the inhabitants? A common theory for Snowpeak Mansion's original purpose is that of a training academy for knights, evidenced by the huge amount of various weapons, open space in the courtyard for sparring, and comfortable living spaces for those in charge. But the academy was abandoned sometime before the game due to the Snowpeak region becoming increasingly colder and more hostile, resulting in it beginning to decay. This idea is often coupled with a theory surrounding Ashe and her father. Ashe is an important character in the game, a member of the Resistance, and apparently the daughter of a knight. She mentions that she grew up in the mountains with her father, who taught her the art of war as if she were his son. So if Snowpeak Ruins was once a knight's academy in the mountains, perhaps this is where Ashe's father lived and where she was raised and trained.
While it fits thematically, this isn't the case, as Ashe describes Snowpeak as being unlike any mountain she's ever known, meaning she can't have been raised there, and it's unlikely that the reason it was abandoned was due to that cold. While it's possible that Snowpeak wasn't always a frozen wasteland, meaning the mansion was built in a more habitable area, there are signs that the mansion was always surrounded by this permanent winter, as a snowflake symbol is one of the mansion's most common motifs, found on the cannons, the ceiling of the main bedroom, and even decorating the flags surrounding the coat of arms. Snowpeak Mansion was likely always enshrouded in bitter cold. This location was chosen deliberately, in one of the most hostile environments in the country, which would be an incredibly strange place to build a simple training ground.
The first clue to the mansion's history, and one central to most theories surrounding Snowpeak Mansion, is the mysterious crest found throughout the dungeon. Crossed rapiers in front of a red and blue shield, with a pair of wings in the back. This symbol appears everywhere, on the stone columns outside the mansion, on the wooden doors, flags, and prominently displayed in the entrance hall. It's clear that this symbol represents Snowpeak Mansion, or its original owners, as it's found nowhere else in the game, with a couple of exceptions. First, and most importantly, this symbol can be found within Hyrule Castle itself, in Princess Zelda's tower, providing a strong link between Snowpeak Ruins and the royal family. This is only true for the HD version, with the original game just featuring a wing crest in its place, but the second location in which this coat of arms can be found outside of the mansion is also connected to the royal family, the Ice Block Cavern. This small cave is found in North Hyrule Field, and seems to be a weapons store with multiple small rooms. It's in a state of disrepair, crumbling and almost completely frozen over, but this cavern features heavily both the Snowpeak coat of arms and the wing crest, again connecting the two symbols. If the mansion was built by the Hyrulean royal family, it would explain its opulence, literally fit for a king. The painting of the city in the sky is particularly enigmatic, as the Oka and their ancient residence is little more than a legend in Hyrule, yet an accurate painting exists in this mansion. However, we know that at some point the Hyrulean royal family communicated regularly with the Oka. A designated individual known as the Messenger to the Heavens would carry the Dominion Rod and contact the Oka on behalf of the royal family. So, of all groups in Hyrule, it makes the most sense for these paintings to belong to this royal family, as they have connections to each and every location and individual displayed.
The assumption that the mansion was designed by the royal family explains the luxurious living areas, with servants to bring food, comfortable sitting rooms and bedrooms, and a chapel for religious ceremonies. And based on its strong defensive position and massive arsenal of weapons, a popular idea is that the mansion was built as a safe house for the royal family, for use in wars or other times of conflict, allowing the royals to retreat to a well-defended, remote, but still comfortable location. This theory ties up many of the dungeon's mysteries, but it doesn't clear up everything. For one, why does the Snowpeak Mansion have a separate coat of arms to the traditional wing crest used by the royal family? And most importantly, why, if the house's military features are designed to protect those individuals, is it filled with these gigantic suits of armor, too large and too heavy for even the tallest Hylian to wear?
Let's look at the more exciting mystery first, the puzzle of the colossal suits of armour. It's hard to overstate this armour's scale. If Link is around 5.5 feet tall, then these suits are at least 11 feet tall and more than 6 feet wide. These suits of armour could be waved off as being merely decorative, except for the fact that it's not just the full sets on display that are found in the mansion. There are entire storerooms filled with these helmets, boots, chest plates and gauntlets. It's as if the mansion is stocked to armour up an entire legion of gigantic warriors. Warriors who absolutely dwarf their Hylian counterparts. And in the mansion, one such soldier remains. When Link enters one of the mansion's many rooms, this one being a storeroom with 2 caged stashes on either side, he's met with 2 of these suits of armour, standing sentinel in the middle. Aside from the eerie ambience of the mansion, nothing seems amiss, until Link nears the other side, and a metal grating slides down to block his exit. As the bars cover the door, a strange sound cuts through the room, a thrumming like the bellows of a forge. Suddenly, the suit of armour closest to him explodes, falling to pieces as it's struck by a massive force. As it collapses, the assailant is revealed. The other suit has seemingly come to life, swinging around a colossal steel ball. This enemy is Dark Hammer, the dungeon's mini-boss, and a brilliant fight against a powerful opponent in a tight space. Link must avoid the ball and chain and use the hook shot to reach Dark Hammer's vulnerable back. After its defeat, Link is left with the ball and chain, an unwieldy but monstrously strong weapon which can smash through otherwise nearly unbreakable obstacles, and deal massive damage to enemies.
But the dungeon's item aside, with Dark Hammer itself we've got an insight into one of the mansion's mysteries. Whatever the enemy is, it seems that the suit of armor it's wearing was designed to fit it. In addition to its tail, and obviously inhumane proportions, concept artwork of Dark Hammer shows that it's some sort of reptile creature, not unlike the game's Defossez. But if the armor fits so closely on Dark Hammer, then it's very possible that its armor, along with the armor which decorates the mansion's halls, and the armor found in the storerooms, were all designed to fit these gigantic reptilian creatures. So currently our picture of Snowpeak Mansion is that of a comfortable fortress built for the royal family, deliberately far out in the biting cold mountains. However, the mansion was also filled with armor designed to fit an unidentified race of huge reptiles, one of which remains in the ruins, known as Dark Hammer.
But let's go a step further. Stick with me on this one. Could Snowpeak Mansion have been built to create them? A stronghold far away in the mountains, designed to not only house the royal family, but to forge a new species of bodyguard. The house not only has the vast supplies of weapons and armor designed to fit the monstrous Dark Hammer, but also rooms which could have been cells, and notably, huge steel cages. During the game, a Freezard occupies one of these cages. But when the mansion was in operation, might they have housed the reptilian creatures which became the armoured Dark Hammer, keeping them secured while not in training? Dark Hammer famously uses the ball and chain, swinging the ball's huge weight to deal massive damage. But this is far from the first time we've seen this weapon used by enemies. In fact, it normally appears as the signature weapon of the ball and chain soldier, debuting in A Link to the Past, where they're brainwashed Hyrulean soldiers. The ball and chain is a standard weapon used by the royal family's own soldiers, and now again by Dark Hammer. Perhaps Dark Hammer is the result of a dark experiment by the royal family, deliberately isolated in the freezing mountains far from civilization. Kept in cages and clad in thick plate armor, Dark Hammer may have been a primitive soldier designed by the royal family, bred from a type of Lizalfos.
But it still feels like we're missing something. Why doesn't Dark Hammer appear anywhere else if it was designed as a guardian by the royal family? The answer might not lie in the mansion itself, but miles from the frozen peaks, within Hyrule Castle itself, where we can find the next step in the mystery. More giant suits of armor. While they blend in with the overall colossal scale of the seats of the royal family, and are dwarfed by the gigantic opulent halls of the Citadel, the suits of armor found within are unarguably linked with those found at Snowpeak. Not only are they a similar size, only slightly less broad, the actual separation pieces of armor are actually nearly identical in shape, including strange quirks like small legs and an oversized torso. The main difference, aside from the castle suits being slimmer, are the helmets, which appear to be entirely different to those found at Snowpeak.
However, the HD remake actually changes the helmet of Darkhammer to match almost perfectly the design of the helmets in Hyrule Castle. 2 eye slits with 3 vertical slits lower down for ventilation. Additionally, also in the HD remake, Darkhammer features this symbol on his chest plate, almost identical to a symbol found all throughout Hyrule Castle.
It's no coincidence that a fortress mansion tied to the royal family, and their seats at Hyrule Castle itself, both feature this gigantic armor which seems to be designed for Darkhammer, not for Hylians. But it seems like we're missing a piece of the puzzle here. Something to make this strange connection make sense. The answer to the Snowpeak mystery.
The Dark Nut. These powerful knights debuted in the very first game in the series, and have appeared sporadically since. In Twilight Princess, they're arguably at their strongest, towering over Link and clad in thick plate armor. A Dark Nut is first encountered as the mini-boss of the Temple of Time, seemingly guarding the Dominion Rod, and will challenge Link when he enters the room. The Dark Nut fights with an immense sword and shield, and is nigh invulnerable to damage except for its weak spots, which Link must focus on to remove the plate armor. When the Dark Nut's exterior armor is destroyed, it'll engage Link with a smaller sword, moving far faster as now it only wears chainmail. The Temple of Time Dark Nut wears a suit of black armor with a crested helm, but those encountered later on in the game, such as those in Hyrule Castle, are kitted out in mostly silver armor, with winged great helms. The Dark Nuts are interesting because they seem unlike any of Ganondorf's other minions. Their plate armor clearly requires an advanced civilization to smith, features strange insignia, and their under armor is covered in red and gold cloth which looks decidedly regal, perhaps even more so than Ganondorf's own armor. The Dark Nuts found in Hyrule Castle even feature a beetle emblem, perhaps representing their similarity to the armored insect.
It's debatable what Dark Nuts actually are in Twilight Princess, as we never see them without armor. Even when in their second form, their head is still covered by a crowned mask. However, they're obviously humanoid shape, and appear to have human facial features. Except for the fact that they're impossibly tall. Around as tall as the suits of armor.
While the armor of either type of Dark Nut doesn't resemble the armor found in either Snowpeak Ruins or Hyrule Castle, a connection has to be drawn between them. All are giant sets of plate armor, connected in some way to Hyrule Castle and the royal family. And if Darkhammer was the result of the royal family breeding at Snowpeak Mansion, could the Dark Nuts, in possibly tall humanoids, have been forged the same way? If we assume that Darkhammer was the first iteration, judging by its overly monstrous, hunched appearance, there's a clear progression here, starting with the bulky, inhuman shapes of Darkhammer and the Snowpeak armor, shifting to the slightly more humanoid Hyrule Castle armor, and ending with the Dark Nut, the perfected form of the warrior. Dark Nuts appearing in Hyrule Castle could easily be the result of Ganondorf's influence, as the castle is infested with his minions. But the one found within the Temple of Time appears to be deliberately placed, guarding the Dominion Rod. It's possible that, like the lesser enemies which plague the Temple of Time, this Dark Nut was placed by Ganondorf to guard the Dominion Rod. But it's equally possible that he was placed here by whoever built the temple, or by the royal family themselves, tasked with defending the artifact from whoever enters his domain. The Dominion Rod was a sacred treasure of the royal family, used by the Messenger of the Heavens to communicate with the Oka, so perhaps, once it was no longer needed, it was stored safely within this temple, and guarded by a Dark Nut. These massive knights might not actually be evil, but simply guardians placed to defend important locations like the Temple of Time, or Hyrule Castle itself. The names of Darkhammer and Darknut are obviously very similar in English, but in Japanese too, the Darkhammer being called Hammernaku or Hammerknuckle, while Darknut is called Tatunaku or Dark Knuckle. There's a bit of ambiguity here on whether Knuckle was meant to mean knight, but either way there's a clear connection with their names. But still, they could just be minions of Ganondorf, except the most prominent symbol adorning the armour on these Darknuts, found here on their knee pads, shields, and even swords, is the symbol of a bird, with wings split into 3 and 2 3-digit talons below, which is a stylised version of the Loftwing symbol, used to represent Hylia and the royal family. Of course, this is very similar to the Knight's crest symbol worn by Darknuts in the Wind Waker, but that's a theory for another day. With this possibility in mind, let's come back to the final mystery of Snowpeak Mansion, the coat of arms. As we've mentioned, it's clearly connected to the royal family. But if so, why doesn't it simply feature the wing crest design? The exact reason is impossible to determine, but perhaps this crest, 2 crossed swords on a shield in front of a pair of wings, represents some military faction closely related to the royal family, for which Snowpeak was built. If this is true, it's possible that the Ice Block Cavern, a strange abandoned cave filled with weapons, wasn't a weapons store at all, but a training room, with each small section representing a combat arena. This faction, similarly to the Sheikah, might have operated in relative secrecy, defending Hyrule and the royal family at whatever cost, undertaking even the tasks considered too dark or heinous for the royals themselves to carry out, like the creation of armoured guardians at the isolated Snowpeak Mansion, bred from the primitive Darkhammer, kept in cages, and forged into some of the deadliest, most skilled fighters Hyrule has ever seen. It's entirely possible that Snowpeak was intended for a different purpose, or that the Darknuts have no relation to the Darkhammers, or that all monsters seen in-game are simply creations of Ganondorf or corruptions of the Twilight Mirror. And regardless of theories, Snowpeak Mansion will likely always remain officially unexplained. But the appearance of the massive amounts of gigantic plate armour, steel cages, connections to the royal family, and the appearance of Darkhammer itself hint to a more ominous purpose to the mansion than it initially seems. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these ideas, and what your personal theory is on Snowpeak Mansion. A huge thank you to Nintendo Black Crisis for joining me on this one. Be sure to check out his video covering the Temple of Time and the Ocar over on his channel. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.